What's up, guys? Ming the Merciless 93 here, and we're back with part 3 of this series. And we're just talking about hand reading and snow and pierogies and shit. And ice cream empires. All that good stuff. All that good stuff. We roll in and we see the Ace Queen 4 rainbow board texture with B-Dog shipping $1.60 into 360. Looks like he's going to take that one down. It's like whenever I get to the table, all the homies come out, man. Dr. Rungood's here to see us. B-Dog's here to see us. They want to get on that video. Trying to get a taste of the flavor. We're going to raise it up with pocket fives. Pocket fives are always good, always fun. We're going to get called in multiple spots here. Hopefully this DRK bro does not shove. And that is the board texture that is going to screw this hand completely. We are out of here, dude. We might have a stronger range, but that doesn't really matter in a four-way pot, no equity. So, gone. We are gone. And check fold is good. Check on fold. Check, 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 fold. Hey, how the hell did we win a hand? It actually folded around to us. We took a walk. That's not something that happens too frequently in these games. 10-7 offsuit's going to be a fold. And King 6 of diamonds will be a fold. King 3 offsuit. Yes. Another fold. Pot-sized bet. Now, you know that there's less 10-jack combinations in the deck because we have a 10, which is only 12 left. There's 4 jacks and 3 10s, so there's only 12 combinations available. When he's betting pot like this into a card that should hit his opponent's range pretty well, generally going to be a very strong hand. That's something that you can definitely take away. Now, we have deeper stacks behind us, and these guys are relatively short. Our hand is an implied odds hand that doesn't really want to just play pre-flop without having position and good implied odds, and those things are negated by the fact that they have short stacks. Our implied odds are down the drain. And we also have players that have a bunch of chips behind us that can squeeze us and do all kinds of annoying things. And when this guy checks back, and this is disrespectful, I'm just going to check down the king high. If I were in a live game here or in a game where I knew we were just going to roast him, then we're going to have a pretty high success rate for bluffing. That's cool. Here we're just going to lose to ace high. And as it stands, he's just checking back that 10-5. That's good. That's good. Not even bluffing with 10 high. I like it. I like it. Sometimes you just got to give up. Sometimes you just got to give up. But no, I think that we will get called by a higher frequency in these games, and there's not really much of a reason to go crazy. I'll probably check down our ace high here as well. If he bets the turn, a lot of times he's going to have a pair. Maybe some diamonds. Yeah, just be safe checking back. Check. I hate it when people say that. When they're out of position, they'll check back. You didn't check back, dummy. You just checked. See? Not even bluffing with 9 high. That's what I mean about these games being passive. I think it's if they're leading in a spot or if they're betting in a spot, a lot of the time we ought to just give them credit because, man, they seem passive in these games. Just super, super passive. I mean, come on. That's pretty passive. Eight, 9 offsuit, mostly going to be a folding combination. Sometimes will be a raise, blind versus blind. Sometimes will be a limp. And now it's gone. Deuces, we will certainly raise it up. Flat called on the button. And again, a board texture which annihilates our chances of winning. So we'll just go ahead and get the hell out of here. Or what I like to say, check and fuck off. That's right. It's a good strategy. Check, fuck off. Where's that 9-10 at? 9-10 of spades. Would have had our delicious straight flush. Jack 3 offsuit, folding combination. And I know, I say the F word sometimes, and you know what? Too bad. Why? Because we're gambling on the internet. We're adults and we're playing poker on the internet, you know? So if you're offended by the F word, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. I'm not going to say much of anything. I'm not. We're just going to move on from it. I'll bet the ice cream emperor swears a lot too. Would have flopped trips here, which means there's way less combinations for somebody else to have trips. If nobody can have pocket jacks here, the pre-flop razor can, if there was one. Pre-flop razor here? I didn't see the action. It looked like it was a bunch of limps. Or was it? Yeah, we folded into the gun and went like limp all around? Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so there's only 1-8 left in the deck, which means if they only have a suited 8, then there's not that many combinations of 8x. So 8-9 suited, one combo of every suited 8. And there's only 4 combos of every kicker that isn't on the board. You're not going to see a lot of 8s there. You have ace-6 of spades, ace-7 of spades, both playable hands. Raise it up with our ace-7 of hearts. We flop the nuts. And it is a board texture which allows him to have a lot of straight draws, a lot of pairs, a lot of heart combos. A pretty good spot to just be betting, so we'll just go ahead and bet. And I think we can just go ahead and 3-bet here. We have a suited ace, and this guy is isolating a limper. So it's a pretty good spot for us to just go ahead and 3-bet. I think we'll go ahead and bet here to protect our hand's equity. We are going to get called by pocket pairs that beat us for sure. We're just going to be checking a lot of turns. But if he's got something like king-queen, ace-queen, queen-jack, there's a ton of Broadway combos here. 10-jack suited, all those hands that we are certainly ahead of. That is a relatively bad turn card. As far as turn cards go, that's probably the worst one in the deck, since flushes now beat us, and 10-8 and 10-9 now beat us, and, you know, all of that. 8-9 suited now beats us. So that's like the worst turn card in the deck. So is this hand at the middle, top, bottom of our range in this spot? I think if he has a hand like ace something, he's probably going to, you know, value bet that. He might check back a flush sometimes. I think checking and calling, probably slightly better in this spot, since he'll value bet some worse aces perhaps. And yeah, I'm actually surprised he didn't turn that into a bluff. Like that would be a prime hand for him to turn into a bluff. We actually got value on the flop. So, I mean, we could go for a river bet, but I think it might be kind of dicey. The only time that that's going to be very good is if our opponent's going to have like ace-jack, and he's going to have ace-queen, and he's just not going to, he's going to call the flop, check back the turn, and then check back the river when he hits. So I think that, you know, it kind of depends on how tricky your opponent is. Like, the trickier your opponent is, the stronger his checking range is, the more we probably want to just check that river. And if he never bluffs the river, we're just going to have to check fold our ace-6. In this game with no other info, I'd probably just go ahead and check call. And against passive opponents, we could certainly just go ahead and bet. This is kind of a weird turn card. I'm just going to go ahead and check again and assume that this guy's sometimes going to bet. We do have a blocker to 10-jack. We have a blocker to 10-6 and boats. Obviously, 6 combinations, pocket 8s, pocket 9s. You know, they're going to have any 10x and any 6x that's going to float here. I'm going to go ahead and raise it up and probably just get it in against Denver fan. Hopefully it just has top pair. We are going to be beat by different trips on rare occasion, but, you know, taking it down's not bad either with the clubs and everything else out there. Could make my raise size slightly smaller, but a lot of the hands that are calling are going to have enough equity to call. If we fold somebody off of a 10x combo or something, it's certainly not the end of the world. King-jack of clubs over here on table 1. And we will definitely raise this up. This is good enough to isolate out of position for sure. You have king 5 of diamonds. Raise that on the button. This is one of those board textures where I'm just going to check and give up. They're just going to have a high frequency of calls. We have a little bit of equity on this turn card, but nonetheless, it's not really enough to be barreling or anything like that. If he checks twice, again, you could go for a bet line, but it's going to be a little worse on this 8 specifically, just because he'll have more of this middling board texture. We'll just see what he's flatting in the small blind and then checking down. I'll just get out of there with that hand. Case to be made for double barreling versus check there, but I think that's probably a relatively poor spot to be doing so. Not that great. You can make a case for 3-betting here, but it's not really all of that. It's not really all that necessary. We're not on the button. Tables are relatively loose. We'll just go ahead and fold. We definitely flatter 3-bet on the button a lot of the time. With the rake in these games, you'd probably 3-bet or fold, to be honest with you. Yeah, I know. I folded an ace in the big blind. I know. It's going to happen on occasion. It's going to happen on occasion. Oh, man. Results-oriented thinking. We would have had a flush. What am I doing? Yeah, I mean, he's probably betting his kings and queens on the turn. Doesn't really have 4s unless it's literally 4x of clubs. I think it's a good spot to bluff a capped range against B-Dog. This is kind of weird. I'm just going to limp again. Only because this is Mickey, has a small stack here. If we raise it up and then everything blows up, we don't really get to see a flop. It's not as good to be isolating here with these 5s as it is. For the most part, just limp it in, see a flop, try to hit our set. I go back and forth with these things. Obviously, you want to punish the limpers, quote-unquote, and isolating is very good, especially if you can take the pot down pre-flop or get it heads up against one guy and then win the flop with a lot of C-bets, whatever else. You're definitely going to accumulate chips in that manner. That being said, the more players that are limping, the less likely it is that you're going to win pre-flop, and these pairs are more equity locked than other hands. So even though it's okay to be doing so, you're not going to hit a set that often. I'd almost rather have something like 8, 9 of spades to be able to play a little bit more flexibly post-flop. But I just think that limping behind on the button is perfectly reasonable with either of those hands. And you know, when your opponents have short stacks and wide ranges, you definitely don't need to go crazy trying to get them to fold hands that are slightly better, take down dead money pots, whatever. Not as frequently anyway. You know, cherry pick your spots for sure. I think this is a cherry spot. So we'll just go ahead and raise this one up. All right. Queen 7-3, some gut shots out here, some straight draw action, some flush draws, Queen X combos. Go ahead, continuation bet. Yeah, no value. Meh. Certainly, King Queen is going to be strong enough to raise over the limp. We've seen this guy limp fold as well. And out of position on a board texture that's dynamic like this, he's going to call us with Jack 9, 8, 9, 6, 8, 5, 6. I'm probably just going to be checking. If we had position and he checked to us, we could certainly bet more frequently. And in this case, he makes a pretty easy check call for us, bidding 20 cents. This guy has just been really quiet. I don't think I've seen or heard anything from this opponent whatsoever at all at the table. So I think that this is a spot where we just fold when he 4x 3-bets us. And that's the other thing, is that we know that our opponents aren't even bluffing with high cards that they should, so we're going to over-realize king high's equity when he's not bluffing us with you know, slightly worse hands. He just lets us get all the way to showdown. There's less of a reason for us to be bluffing for the most part, which means that when they check back the flop, that we don't even have to bluff as much on the turn versus checking range, because checking range that we'd basically have to be making them fold a pair on the river, because if they have a pair, they're calling on the turn, and if they have nothing, it doesn't look like they're bluffing that often. So we're going to get to showdown, over-realize king high's equity when it's good, and then we'd basically be trying to fold them off of a pair by betting. Definitely going to have some mixed results with that. Yeah, I'm all about interacting with king, queen of diamonds. I use it as a flat call, I use it as a 4-bet, but we're isolating a guy, and Life's Good has literally not played a fucking hand. Don't remember them even being sniffing a pot. Maybe on rare occasion, like a limp pot or something where they didn't have a choice, you know. Browbeaten by the Grim Reaper. You must play this pot. And we have a check here. We could definitely lead this in the limp pot, but it's relatively dry board texture. Give them a chance to catch up a bit, get some straight draws, some flush draws going on here. So since this guy doesn't ever bluff, I'm going to check back my gut shot on this board, since if he has a king, a 10, or a 6, he won't fold, and he'll probably filter through on the turn by betting some combos that would not have folded on the flop. And versus that check line here, I think we're good just betting. We don't need to bet that much either. It's like I could bet the flop with some uncertainty, but knowing that they're going to call with these specific combos, and then on the turn, I just go ahead and bet versus check, knowing that they're probably going to filter through some of their better hands and end up having a bunch of weak garbage and folds, and just a higher frequency of folds. More predictable, weaker range, easier to exploit. If we're going ham in any spot, it's definitely versus that line. Check. I could raise here with the pocket fours, but that dude, again, has not a very big stack. And these fours are, again, a little bit equity locked out of position. Little equity lock. You don't like that. We don't like being equity locked. We like having flexibility. We end up having the best hand here quite a bit, but we don't get to value bet it. There's only 60 cents in the pot. People don't really go for it. I mean, how does he check the river with a 3? You check the boat? You check two? What's he? See, I don't get it. I don't get it, man. Like, bet the turn and at least bet the river. You know, slow poker's probably not very likely to be doing much of anything. I'm not really sure what that was about. Life is good, but like that play wasn't very. We're going to go ahead and limp the button here again. Again, we isolate sometimes, we limp sometimes, we mix it up. I think both are reasonable strategies. I'm definitely trying to raise more than just limp. That's for damn sure. But I do limp on occasion. I just kind of assume Bob's going to have a lot of pocket pairs and then some other random shit. This is pretty close to being a value bet. He still could have some straight ace-x combos, so we're just going to check back and play the river. But, yeah, I think he's going to just have a lot of random pocket pairs, and when he check calls, he'll have a lot of 9x. So if he has 9x as often as he has jack or ace-x, and then he has some jack-x combos that beat us as well, it's just a check on the river. He also has some flush draws and whatnot. As you can see, he's got 4 or 5 of diamonds. Really, that's a little bit wide. We'll probably be isolating him heads up a bit more in the future. And by all means, you could certainly have isolated with the 10 jack in that spot, which we do relatively frequently. I just isolate less whenever there's more people or short stacks, whatever else. And in live games, you're just going to isolate less when they're under the gun in an earlier position, just because the pot gets out of control. You know, like once you isolate a guy under the gun, the other players call, assuming that player's going to call, and then that player calls because those other players called. So if you isolate somebody under the gun, then you're just going to create a gigantic pot. So you don't want to do that with a very wide range. You want to do that with a range of hands that flop a high equity distribution. What I mean by that is if you have a pair of threes, let's say, and you flop nothing, the board is like 7-8, 10, you know that you're just done. You have like no equity in a four-way pot. But if you flop a set on 3 ace queen, something like that, you're going to win a high percent of the time, and you're going to have your opponents drawing with way less equity, and you can play a much bigger pot. So you don't mind that. Like, you don't mind knowing you're creating a big pot when you have a pocket pair or you have a high implied odds hand. Same thing with something like a suited ace, because if you have a suited ace, yes, you can pot control when you do flop an ace and play a smaller pot. Just try to play 1 or 2 streets. You're going to end up having to have the discipline of folding a good bit more because your ace isn't going to be good as often. But if you flop trips, or if you flop the nut flush draw or the nut flush in general, those are very good implied hands, because whenever you have trips, you have the best kicker, and obviously having the best flush or the best flush draw makes a lot of sense too, especially in an inflated pot with multiple people. I think I could definitely make a case for bluffing here with 3 high. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. We'll just go ahead and bluff versus check, check. If you take anything away from these videos, folks, it's bluff versus check, check. And you could make a case for bluff, bluff a high percent versus check, check. Definitely bluff versus check, check, and then bluff, bluff a lot versus check, check. Poker is a storm, and you got to weather that shit, so you're not always going to be doing the same thing. And this is not an amazing scenario. We just have a bluff catcher. Our equity comes from our opponent's bluffing. And we're now done. We are now done, and we're done over here as well. Done, 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 done. Can we value bet? No. We can get called by a queen, a scared ace. We called by all kinds of stupid tens that beat us. We're just not ever really value betting. We're just checking and hoping to take it down. Let me get that 50 cents real quick. I'm trying to buy a soda. I'm trying to buy some New York seltzer and a pretzel. We'll go ahead and limp it in with 8, 9. Getting 5 to 1. Playable hand. Not good enough to isolate out of position. Board textures meh. So we'll be checking and giving up. Check this queen high down. Definitely folding versus the pot size bet. Hey, we'll just flat on the button with ace-jack offsuit. It's a spot where, you know, any play is reasonable depending on the variables, because ace-jack offsuit's not going to play all that great in a four-way pot, and it gets you into tough spots. So you could say, well, it's profitable to call. Well, where's that profit coming from? Having good, favorable spots post-flop. And if your opponents aren't just drooling dummies and they're just putting it in with all kinds of worse ace-x and jack-x and making huge mistakes, whatever else, chances are it's not all that great. And in a four-way pot, you run the risk of being the dummy that's making the mistakes. So if it's suited, you're definitely playing it, but you could use it as a 3-bet bluff, and you can fold it, and you can call sometimes. I mean, any of the plays are reasonable. It's not like you hate it post-flop. You have to be capable of folding top pair. You have to be disciplined. You have to be diligent, disciplined, on point. You have to be on your A game if you want to be playing these marginal hands, especially ones that don't make flushes in multi-way pots. So just be careful. That's a spot where a mixed strategy makes the most sense. You can 3-bet, you can fold, you can flat call. What are the variables? What makes sense? Do what makes sense. Multifunctional hand. We'll go ahead and raise it up with pocket sevens. Come on. We took it down. Wow. I wouldn't have thought that he'd be folding. I thought that we'd get some calls. Right into ace queen of spades. Ace queen of spades is delicious, is it not? Is it not? Why is that pot size betting? Yeah, whatever, we'll pot size bet it. The 3x thing bounced. I'm not sure why. Yeah, it could be worse. Slow poker decides to call. We see a board texture of king, king, 4. Now, if we had something like queen, jack, we would definitely bet. in this spot, we have ace high, and we win a lot. If we get check raised, it kind of sucks. And I think that most of the time we can make him fold turns and rivers. Here I wouldn't expect him to be folding all that much. He could definitely have a bunch of quad combos, and of course, he could just have a bunch of pocket pairs that are never folding. And he's pot betting it. We'll just get out of here. We'll just get out. All right, fine. You want me to leave? I'll leave. That's fine. He has more quads there than you think, even though there's only one king left in the deck. If he's playing offsuit combos, there's 4 of every single kicker. Now, there's only 3 aces in the deck. He probably doesn't have ace-king in general. And there's only 3 queens in the deck, so you have 3 combos of quads with a queen. Then if you look at a jack, and you look at a 10, you look at a 9, all commonly played, suddenly you get up to like 15 combinations of quads. I mean, you're thinking, well, no one ever has quads, but like that motherfucker, he's got quads. Here we have a double gutter and the 6 of diamonds, so we'll go ahead and bet. We get a 3, we have a straight. We get a 7, we have a straight. And he'll fold the Broadway card portion of his range a good bit of the time. But not always. Now, top card pairs. We block some of his folding combos here with a 6x or a flush draw, so we're just going to go ahead and check back here and probably bet the river as a bluff to try to get him to fold a 5, try to get him to fold a 4, assuming that he would bet an 8 himself. You get him to fold some flush draws as well. This isn't going to work all the time, so don't be surprised if it doesn't. It doesn't mean it isn't showing a profit long term. It doesn't mean it is. Clearly didn't work that time against a 5, and that's kind of what we want him to fold. We could certainly increase our bet sizing there as well, but I wouldn't, like, it's not an optimal combo to do that with. That was just kind of our test bluff. Raise, c-bet, bam. King 5 offsuit, down the drain. Five deuce offsuit, baby. 5 deuce offsuit. Might get that limp around. We'll go ahead and check that big blind. And nothing. And we're going to be folding the 5 deuce. Surprise, surprise. Jack 8 offsuit, going to be a folding combination. Yeah, I would just urge you guys to learn as much as you can about combinatorics. It relates to equity. It relates to the influence of your decisions. What kind of decision do I want to make here? What combination do I have? How many of this? How many of that? The recipe for success in poker. It all relates to combinatorics. It's actually surprising to me what an important part of poker combinatorics ends up being, and how infrequently people want to, or people do know about them or use them. I'm going to go ahead and re-raise here with pocket jacks, getting ourselves into dicey situations, but that's okay. I'll take it down. It would have been nice to have pocket queens here, just so that we could 3-bet again and give him that perception of, hey, this guy's just fucking with me. What is it with numbers, man? What is it with numbers? Everybody and their brother. We got B-Dog, 7867. We got Big Mike, 69. We got Tech, 187. We got Tilt, 95. Ming the Merciless, 93. I guess everybody was, that was the year that they were born, you know? B-Dog's from the future. He'll be here, Blade Runner 15. I don't know. Let's go ahead and wrap this video up, guys, during this lull here. I'll see you guys for the next video. Hope you guys have enjoyed this one. Be back in just a few. Ooh, that guy had a flush.